No one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Glory of Golden State Gaming. I'm your host, Swamp Swimmer, and with me as always, the string to my theory, Vespacian.
I'm just kidding. Hi, everybody.
Okay, that wasn't my best one. I'll admit it. But
just lie and say somebody else has sent it to you.
Vespacian, you had something to start out the battle report with.
I did. I had a, I hope we can all relate to, it being a positive thing that the sort of recent shows and movies like Game of Thrones, and if you reach a little bit further back, Lord of the Rings, has kind of helped bring the fantasy genre into the mainstream, which means that, I'm getting to have all sorts of fun conversations with, friends who maybe are not deep into tabletop gaming. And one of those happened just earlier today, which was really, I thought was fun conceptually, which was episode 3 of House of the Dragons, right? The new Game of Thrones show on HBO. I got into a little bit of a
First off, spoiler alert or no spoiler alert on what happened in episode 3?
It's gonna have some light spoilers. It'll have some light spoilers. Fast forward through this section. Yeah, I'll try to avoid like massive spoilers, but light spoilers are unavoidable. Good point. Thank you. So basically, I got into a discussion with some friends about in episode 3. One of the main storylines is this long war between the Daemon Targaryen and Lord Corlys against the Crab Feeder, right? This essentially kind of pirate that has become a menace in this area of the Stepstones, and essentially what you find out at the beginning of the episode is that the war that was launched in the prior episode is now fast forward 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's a time.
It's still
time jump. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I won't get into exactly how it resolves itself, but essentially we got into a medieval battlefield tactics discussion, which was essentially like, how does this war last for 2.5 years when you have the dragon sort of trump card to play, and just kind of the discussion about it. So the topic was essentially like, how cool is it that we can be having essentially like tabletop wargaming strategy discussions with friends of ours that have never played the game. And then also, I guess as a follow-up, what did you think? How much did it strain the imagination? What happened in episode 3?
Yeah. First of all, that is some deep nerd conversation about how a war can be drawn out when you're fighting a dragon. I guess with literally like pirates in a cave. Yeah, I guess when I watch Game of Thrones, I just kind of suspend reality. Like that did not occur to me. I'm like, oh, okay, it's on to 2.5 years, and they're somehow winning. Like, I don't know. You're totally right, but it didn't occur to me when I was watching the show. And as far as liking the show, I loved it. I was, again, big spoiler alert: the crab feeder dies at the end. And I thought he was a cool ass character, and I wanted to see more of him and like his backstory and like what he was doing. But I was sad to see him go.
I still come, looking at him, and like they were kind of, it was from a distance and a little bit, and I, in my mind, I went back to the old rule of Game of Thrones, which is that nobody's dead until you watch their head get cut off, and even then. You're not sure.
Even then, maybe
not. I don't know. Maybe he'll come back.
The one thing I was I was convinced of was, remember like the disease from original Game of Thrones, like this, it's called like dragon scale or scale skin or something like that. That's what I thought he had at first. Like he had that disease.
It kind of looked like that. Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about Game of Thrones. We're here to do a bad rap.
I just thought it was cool. But like the other thing, and one last thing was somebody posted like a meme or something. There was a picture of a scene in that episode where they're standing around like a table that has all the little, figurines and stuff like that, and they're planning out the battle. And the meme was basically like, is it that these guys all walk around with like a little box full of all of their favorite warrior miniatures? And he's like, do they paint them? It's like, anyway, it was just such a great, I was like, wargaming has hit the mainstream. I love it.
Oh boy. The time is right for this YouTube channel to pounce on the mainstream tabletop wargaming. Okay, let's
cross promotion into HBO. You heard it here first.
All right. Onto the battle report. We are into round 5 of Silicon Hammer 2022, San Jose, California, and you are doing relatively well. How many points are you at now heading in the round 5?
47. So
47.
27, 10, 10.
So you're doing all right. You're above average, that's all we can hope for. And you get paired into your favorite opponent, Rick from Sacramento. Yeah, I think you play every time you guys are in a tournament together. You play each other at least once, right? On game 5. Yeah.
So this is now our third GT that we have faced each other in round 5, which I think is pretty great. So the stars are aligning for an epic showdown with Rick.
Just a quick note, this is the old Saurian Ancient book. Sorry it took us a while to get this out, but we will get some new Saurian Ancient book battle reports to you as soon as we can. This is Encircle and Breakthrough. If you are interested in Vespacian's Demon Legion list, please click the link right there above my head. That'll take you to the round 1 video where we go into his list in a little more detail, but he's playing Saurian Ancients. Let's see here. We've got his favorite, the Saurian Warlord on an Alpha, Super Dex on a Halberd, Starfall Shard, Obsidian Rock. Pretty awesome. Then he's got the Big Bad Quaddle Lord, General on Evocation and the BSB, Ancient Plaque, Talisman of the Void, Soulfire Weaver, which you don't see too often, and Vespasian always wants me to run, but I never have really. And Grasp of the Immortal.
I gave up on you, and I talked Rick into using it for this tournament. There you go.
He's got 1 block of Crocodile Warriors with spears. He's got 29 of them. 15 Warriors, just hand, weapon, shield. 2x5 Raptor Riders. 3 Pterodons with Fire Bolas. 5 Chameleons. Taurusar with Engine of the Ancients. Thyroscutus Sun Engine. Thyroscutus Altar of the Snake God. Interesting list. I don't see a lot of synergies there, or am I just missing them?
It's interesting. This was a list that I basically said, Rick, Soulfire Weaver is the coolest thing ever. You need to play it. And then he got on the Soulfire Weaver train. We played a practice game or two, and then it seemed as if everything around it changed except for that slot. So or Quaddle. So synergy wise, I think that he just loved the magic phase. I guess each element, he really, really liked having all the monsters, having the big bad, and having just an absolutely killer magic phase, and he sort of filled in the blanks with some good scoring and chat.
Yeah. Let's go into your little pre-game assessment here.
Yeah. So I had this as a yellow, and my thinking on that was that he has a lot of good zoning for some of my fast movers, the Taurosaur, the Alpha, and the Succubi don't match up particularly well against the Crocodile Warriors because of the armor.
Yeah.
And we both have amount of ranged magic damage. Like, this is a classic, like the Sentinel versus the Soulfire Spawn, just like slinging each other. So I just saw it as kind of a standoffish match where, where I maybe had a little bit of upside because I think I can pick off bigger points maybe than he can. But yeah, it was not. I didn't see this as having a big upside.
Okay. This is marked as deployment.
Yeah. So essentially.
This had the special deployment rule where you roll for every unit, and I think it was on. Like a 4+ you can put anywhere you want, but then like on a 1 you have to put it in the far left, on a 2 in the far right, and on a 3 and 4 you have to put it in the center or something like that. Basically, it makes there's a chance where you're deploying. Yeah, it makes a chance of where you're deploying units get forced into one part of the board, so it can really screw with your deployment.
Yeah, so exactly right. And Rick won the roll for sides, picked the top. Pick the big center, as most people usually do, gave me the big flanks. And then I gave the famous last words, which was that I said, I really only care that I don't get the succubi on one flank or another, and I could literally care less about the rest of it. And then, of course,
bam, roll the 1.
Yeah, but anyways, I ended up dropping for first. Succubi, unfortunately, over on that left flank. Mainly just because they're the slowest thing in my army. I would have liked to have them more central so I could support them.
And there's the chariots even farther left. The chariots even farther left, right?
Yeah, but easier to redeploy essentially.
Yeah.
So left to right, yes, I've got Helios, the threshing engine on the left, Succubi, one of the darts, the sticks, the hoarder sticks, one of the imps. Zeus, the Sentinel, Chaff, Sirens, the Blazing Glory, the other Threshing Engine, Hades, the Courtesan, one of the other imp units, and then I think way over on the right, I can't see it at least in this view, but it was the other Hoarder Stick.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Rick's got, and I didn't really get any close-ups, but he has a gorgeously painted army. Actually, I think commissioned through Steve, the guy that did your Beasts, right?
Same guy, yeah.
And he's using the Lost Kingdom miniatures, which that line for Saurians is just lights out. He's got the big alpha, incredible model on the left-hand side there. I'll go left to right from my perspective. He's got the Taurosaur with the Engine of the Ancients. He scouts his chameleons. A funny anecdote on them when we get to one of the next pictures. He's got his big Saurus unit. He's got one of his Thyros there. The smaller Saurus unit, which he was using as a bunker for his Quaddle. The Pterodons behind his other Thyro. And then I think it's both Raptor packs, just stacked one behind the other. I think.
I don't see him.
Where's this other Raptor pack?
He's right here.
Oh,
they're right here in front. They're in front here.
Oh, they're right there in front. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I think the train's pretty self-explanatory. Aside from that, it's a ruins in front of the succubi there.
Ouch.
That was part of why I didn't want them over there. So anyways, yeah, I dropped for first. And my thinking here was, my army's very fast. Aside from the succubi, I really don't care about where I end up, and it's breakthrough. So really, the one thing I cared about was to try to get at least 2 units over onto one flank, and to use kind of the wake of the courtesan to support their advance, so that they could sort of uncontestedly, get the breakthrough, which is what I did over on the right there.
The second image is marked deployment 2. Here's that other stick.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, and one other last thought. A part of why I wanted to go for first was because of that hill. I was really, really nervous about letting him take first and then putting the monsters up on that hill, because I felt like that would have just pushed me back in a very serious way. So I wanted to put the pressure on and use my mobility against him. So that was my thought there.
Okay. Let's see here. This is top of 1 movement.
Yeah, so here's the funny anecdote. In one of those practice games that I played against Rick, um, he scouted his chameleons, those little guys in the white base in the upper left, up just within like a 11-inch charge of one of the threshing engines. And I took it then, and I told him, I was like, look, there's no counter here, and I'd love to pick up those chameleons because they're a great counter to the courtesan, right?
Yeah.
And so at the time he was like, and I made that charge in that practice game, and at the time he was like, that was probably the biggest mistake I made. So then he did it again, and then I charged it again with the threshing engine, and I made the 10 or 11 or whatever it was, and I reminded him of that. He's like, you're 100% right. I can't believe I did that. So anyways, it was a funny little anecdote. I think the downside was not enormous in this case, but you'll see what happens. So I make that charge because there was no downside. I might as well, and I made it. And then I start essentially the envelopment move on the right, where I'm just trying to push the imps and the hoarder stick up for the breakthrough.
Yeah.
Hades comes up. Essentially, I wanted to use first turn with Hades to zone and push back that Raptor unit. And then it gives me a lot of flexibility, and it also helped. I was zoning where the Thyro could move forward, so that the Thyro, because Hades with AP4, I think can take that Thyro off pretty easily. And then I used my move up onto the hill to get the threshing engine and the Blazing Glory up, and because of the location of where I was in a place where he had no counter charges, and I was essentially kind of zoning that whole center and putting threat into the Coatl turn 1, which was kind of my main objective.
Yeah.
And then, a pretty cautious move on the left, aside from the hoarder stick, which, because of where I was able to get that threshing engine, I don't have any threats of counter charges because of kind of the positioning. So I put that hoarder stick up quite far because I was happy to use that, and it's like sit on something and potentially do a couple of wounds against the Alpha or the Taurus or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was my thinking here.
Okay. This is bottom of 1.
Yeah, so you can see that unsurprisingly the threshing engine blows through the 5 million skinks and goes straight into that Raptor unit, which this was, Rick said, I think having them there was definitely a mistake because now his big Croc Saurus unit is pinned back there.
Yeah, it's just stuck there. Yeah.
So he makes some aggressive moves with the Alpha, totally makes sense. He countercharges with the Taurosaur into the threshing engine, which totally makes sense. He needs to clean that thing up. And he, has to essentially withdraw from the other side because of where the courtesan is. And he, essentially pulls everything back and has to use up his only chaff unit in the Pterodons turn 1 to prevent me from just having charges straight into the Coatl bunker turn 1, right?
Yeah.
So pretty happy with what this did to his movement, essentially my turn 1 moves.
All right, this is top of 2.
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, the Taurosaur cleans up the threshing engine. But
yeah,
I take off the Raptors with the threshing engine because the Taurosaur didn't kill it with impact hits. Now I think I had like 5 wounds left, 4 maybe, so that's not a guarantee, right? I mean, obviously it does a lot of wounds, but I have a 5 of Aegis. I just need to survive with 1 wound, and I do, and so I do a bunch of wounds with my impact hits, and I do the last remaining. So
wait, don't
one threshing engine.
Don't both of your impact hits go simultaneously?
They do, right? But I don't think I finished the Raptors with just my impacts. I think
gotcha.
I did the remaining impacts. Yeah.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So really happy. If you look at turn 2 here now, that speculative threshing charge, it got me the chameleons, which were a threat. It cleaned up a fast-moving scoring unit, and it essentially boxed up quite a lot of his movement over there on the left. So I was happy with that. And then what I do is on the right, I put the other threshing engine into the pterodons,
Mm-hmm.
and I take advantage of the really really fast movement from Hades and the Blazing Glory to essentially just move right up.
Pressure is bunker. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a minor mistake here. I think just with it's hard to zone, to move 16, 18, light troops models, and so there was a little gap in there where nothing could charge those two models, right? So that was nice. And then continuing doing what I was trying to do on the right hand side, essentially with the other units, and I actually backed the succubi off in the hopes that it like a failed charge from the Carnosaur or something like that, essentially.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah, but plus you just can't put them into the ruins, because if you're in there and you get charged by any of those monsters, you won't be steadfast and you're gone, or at least you're toasted.
No, they took off that steadfast loss in the ruins thing, but it makes it so I can't charge. One, because I'll lose too many models, and two, I don't want to getting the Carnosaur, the Taurosaur, and the Thyroscutus into that unit. I'll lose it fast, right? So the more piecemeal I can make it for him to come after that unit, the better, was my thinking there.
Gotcha. All right, this is bottom of 2.
Yeah, so what does Rick do? So Rick basically uses one of the to block up both Hades and the Blazing Glory, the Courtesan and the Blazing Glory. And it's worth noting that this whole time, because of how threatening the Courtesan is, he's basically putting all of his magic into the Courtesan every turn.
Yeah.
And I think I'm taking maybe 1Z, 2Z damage from the Soulfire Weaving, but because of where the Courtesan is, it's actually not very convenient to be able to throw the Soulfire Weavings off of it, right? Because he was way out and kind of on his own.
Yeah.
So he uses the Thyra to chaff there, and then he brings the Alpha around to threaten the to threaten where I can move. And because I was trying to fit those two models into that little gap, he's able to chaff them both with the Thyra, which is fine. It's unexpected. I want to say, based on the positioning, that Taurosaur failed a charge into those quarters, but I could just be positioning. I'm not sure.
It would have been a long charge, but yeah.
Yeah, and then because he's worried that the Blazing Glory and the Court could finish off Thyro in one turn, which I think they probably could, and then Overrun would have taken him into the Coatl bunker. He actually pulls the Coatl out. You can see him in the back there, behind the Saurus block, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. He's very much in reactive mode at this point, which, because of those first turn moves. So yeah.
All right. Top of 3.
Yeah. And so I sorry, my wife was checking in on me. So let me see here. Yes, top of 3. Okay, so I definitely don't want to lose the Courtesan and the Blazing Glory to that Alpha Carnosaur, and so I basically reroute around. I do make a charge. It looks like either a charge or a chaffing move with that Hoarder Stick and the Taurosaur. I can't quite. It looks like I charged.
Yeah, it looks like you're in.
Hard to tell.
I think you're in.
Yeah, so it looks like I'm in. Yeah. So I make that charge. Off the charge with no impact hits. I think that combat goes on for a really long time. Right?
Yeah, true.
And then I bring the Blazing Glory around to bring in some countercharging elements. Hades comes around the back to go after the Coatl.
Yeah, right? That's what I imagine you do. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was able to get that threshing engine up, essentially out of arc of everything. And because now the Alpha and the Thyro and everything has moved around, I can start moving the Succubi up essentially uncontested over on that left-hand side, right?
Yeah.
And you can see we're still essentially playing cat and mouse over on the right. His Raptors are kind of moving up, moving back. We're just kind of jockeying for position on the right-hand side. And so I think I lost a couple of sirens to some spell or something. You can see the remaining 2 hiding behind the hill next to Zeus there.
Yep.
And that's about it here.
Okay. This is bottom of 3.
Yeah, so essentially the Hoarders did what they were meant to do, which was hold up that Torsaur. And, you know, because I think Rick realized that I can play that game of kind of threatening and then bouncing out again, he moves the Carnosaur around to a valid target, which is those Hoarders. Now they can't escape. They're locked in combat, right?
Exactly.
And then he starts using the Thyros to press forward and go after my Imps, which I actually think was a really, really smart move. I want to say he failed a charge with the Raptors over on the right-hand side. It looks like that's what he did there.
Yeah.
So, and then his Quaddle moves out of line of sight of the Courtesan, and you know, facing to just blast the crap out of him.
Just keep shooting him, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, the thing that was really, really great about, you know, about the pressure that Courtesan was bringing on that Quaddle early was that essentially I just didn't face that magic phase except for with that one model.
Yeah, true.
So like I essentially haven't lost anything else to what is one of the best casters in the game, right? So anyways, so here we are. And what do we got? I think where do we go from here? I think we're into
this is end of top of 4.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of an issue. I didn't get it at the end of the movement phase, but essentially what happened was I decided to take the DTs because he gave me that nice flank charge with the Torsaur.
Yeah.
With Succubi. And so I take the Succubi in, and as you can see, I actually managed to finish the Torsaur up. This was actually a bit of a surprise because I think you can see from my positioning of the Blazing Glory.
Yeah.
And Hades. I hadn't thought that would happen. I think. I thought I'd need them to finish it up, but I managed to get a bunch of wounds through. I can't remember exactly what happened there. And then over on the right-hand side, because he failed that charge, I'm able to make the charge.
And then you clean up the Raptors.
He just failed a leadership check and ran, essentially. Off the charge, he's only strength 4. He's moving on 5s, you know, and I've got a lot of attacks. So, and then. What else? That's about it. I think I repositioned the threshing engine back because I was really thinking that imp unit on the right-hand side would be critical to me winning breakthrough. So I repositioned the threshing engine back as a counter charge in case the Thyro comes in, which I'm assuming it will. And then I think that's basically it. I think I may have turned the Hoarders to face the Alpha. Essentially.
Yep, makes sense.
Yep.
All right, this is top of 5.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we've missed his movement, but what you can see has happened is he decided not to take the Alpha into the Hoarders, which I think is because he knows he'll get pinned there, right? And I think that was probably a smart move.
Really? I think that's a smarter move to go in because he's doing multi-wounds also, right?
It's a champ stick. Right? So, and then also it's mirrored skills.
Okay, fair enough.
There's some risk there that I think he was conscious of, and so he essentially I think he uses the Alpha to kind of block in their movement, and then brings his Saurus unit, Croc unit around to help finish off them because he needs to stop them because they're scoring a breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
Now you can see, fast forward through a couple rounds of combat, the Thyros Kids they're doing a lot of work on my imps. Unsurprisingly, the imps are not getting through their 1-up armor save. And actually, even my rushing engine has kind of ran out of steam on the imps, unfortunately, or on the Thyro. So those combats are just kind of stuck, and now my imps are not scoring. So essentially, I've got just two scoring units in his, 3 scoring units in his deployment zone,
One,
but
two,
one is
three,
under
yeah.
significant threat. Yeah. And so it's at this point that I'm working with Zeus and the Blazing Glory to pen in the Coatl, because I lost Hades the preceding turn to Magic, which, to be fair, 4
Eventually.
Magic phases from that
Yeah.
slant, I'm gonna lose eventually.
He threw all the magic at him, so like he's gonna get through eventually.
I was not upset about that outcome. I think he did his job, and so now I'm kind of penning in the Coatl, and we are now. So this is so I only have 1 turn left after this, but the Coatl is between the Porters, the Sirens, Blazing Glory, and Zeus. He doesn't have a lot of options with the Coatl, and it looks like I've got a pretty handy lock on the objective at this point, because he's basically just got 1 scoring unit that even has a hope of getting there, which is that one that's up on the hill. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, end of 5.
End of 5. Yeah. So what you can see here is, I guess, yeah. So he finishes up one of the imp units with that Thyroscutus. He's still working on the other imp unit on the right hand side, and I think this picture confused me just a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what he did with the Coatl there, but I think if you go to the next picture,
I think are you in combat with the Blazing Glory? Is he in combat with the Blazing Glory?
I don't actually think so, but I could be wrong. It could be. So I think in the next picture it explains it a little bit better.
End of game.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, this is why I think this explains it just a little bit better. So I think that what happened was, he had I think the Coatl was stuck in, maybe he couldn't move, or he failed a march check or something like that, and so Rick had a big debate of he couldn't get the Coatl into that unit, so his question was, does he bring the unit into combat and in a way that sort of, but he'd have to charge the Coatl in too or something. There was basically like a debate of what made the most sense, because he didn't want, the Coatl was going to get charged one way or the other, but that unit he felt could help because it would bring in the champion to prevent the challenge that would kill the Coatl, essentially. There's something like that. And so he did end up bringing that unit in. I did, spoiler alert, end up getting the Coatl. So it didn't end up saving him. But the unit ended up getting I think some decent points, like it finished off the Blazing Glory or something like that. So there was this kind of like back and forth. We ended up kind of debating it because we had enough time to talk through it, debating what he should do there. And so at the end, I got the Coatl, but he got the Glory. And so we ended up with a 15-5. Which was...
That seems about right. I mean, you definitely locked up the secondary, and you took a lot off the boards, including the Coatl. He took off of you a couple small units, 1 threshing engine, and Hades. So yeah, that's a lot of points too. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and so it was. I think that if you looked back at like turn 4 when I got that Phorasaur, right about here, this is like a dominant win. I think like an 18+ win, but I ended up in the late game bleeding a ton of points because I ended up losing the Glory, right? Losing both of the imp units, half points on the remaining threshing engine, right? So I actually from here, the remainder of the game, even though I got the Coatl, I think actually advantaged Rick, because he cleaned up quite a lot of points in the late game. But I think the early game kind of dictated the overall outcome. It was just a matter of how big of a win it would end up being.
Gotcha. That's a good game, though. That's a great game to end your tournament. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a great game. I know. I think that Rick felt felt a bit. He took a relatively static list that kind of relied on his force projection being those monsters that are mobile, and that blasty magic phase. And I think that because I was able to soak the whole magic phase up at the court and use the my superior movement, I think he ended up feeling a bit like it was the demon list was a tough one to face, because it was just like a lot of, you can see many times I kind of like danced into one place and then danced into another place and then danced back, and he found that a little bit frustrating. But I think it ended up, the scenario and the kind of the early turns ended up giving me an advantage. So yeah.
All right, makes sense. Well, that's the end of your tournament. You end up with what, 62 or 63 points or something like that? 64?
Yeah, that sounds about right. 62, I think.
Congratulations. That's a solid number for a tournament. But next episode we'll have my round 5, and then after that we don't know yet. Maybe we'll have some other stuff, maybe we won't. But thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.